Watson. My name's Mr. Neutral. Lawrence is there with his family in the background there. Just turn your mic on there, Lawrence, please. Thanks, mate. Yeah, this program is sponsored by EasyStorage.com for your local nationwide needs. Can handle your goods for care and boxing fights on floor. Apparel and merchandise. Give them a check out in the bio. Some great stuff there. Canelo's Crown, Crawford, Budweiser. I saw there before. There's Mr. Rav Holcomb from Punch Out Boxing. Welcome, sir. I've got Rico from the Boxing Voice, the big man. London Boxing. And we got Bobby from Sampling Chance. And of course, Brett the Boxing Man all the way from Canada. Thank you, gentlemen, for all giving me your time here on Red Corner Boxing. And I've summoned you all. I said, summoned. What am I talking about? I've summoned you all. I've asked you all to come here tonight because this is a subject that I think needs to be talked about because I feel that every single one of us has got our gripes about boxing right now. And, I'll get to each and individual one of you, but I'm going to kick off the show with my own gripe about boxing and what's going wrong in a minute. And that is Mr. Jake Paul. Now, it's no coincidence that he was called the problem child years ago, because for me, he is a problem now in boxing. And the simple fact being that he's upsetting the equilibrium of the sport. And what I mean by that is take MVP out of this and just focus on Jake Paul. This guy, at the age of 23, decided to become a boxer, and having a platform that he's had and the backing financially to create this platform for him, for me, has sent his ego into stratosphere. Now, MVP's come about because of his Misfits ties. That's how he first got into boxing, organising these shows, with his MMA buddies, and then he fought Tommy Fury and he got beat. Had to restructure, had to rebrand. Comes back in the year 2025, if we fast forward after all his nonsense. And what I feel now is that MVP is the creation of this ego to the fact that he'll use MVP promotions in a dual purpose mode. Yes, he's doing fantastic work with the female boxers and signing MVP. And that is what is really elevated Jake Paul in negotiations for these so-called elite mega fights with Anthony Joshua and now with Tank Davis. I get it from this new area of social media and YouTube-ness. We're all into it. We're all in it. And this is a young man who's very successful and just decides he wants to be a boxer and use his status, use his connections, use his thing. And great stuff, fantastic. But don't come into people's primes and upset the equilibrium. Right? Tank Davis, 30 years of age. He's got business to do. And he's coming in and upsetting the odd. Yes, big money, Netflix. I'm hearing stupid figures from 100 million to 200 million, what people are bragging, what this man's going to get. And, I hate to bust the bubble, but we'll get back to that. But I feel that when we nearly, in Great Britain, became the victim of this, what I call an American problem. And this is a result from the decline in America that Jake Paul has found a niche market within the American boxing market and has exploited it. And there's a lot of false narratives for me. So I'll go round in order. We got, next to me, I've got the boxing man from Canada. Now, Brett, I've talked to you about the transitional period that we've been going through in boxing. But this is a real problem for me because after this fight, I do believe that he's going to go on to other targets that will create a vacuum in divisions. What do you think?
The problem is that we've got is he ain't going anywhere, is he? And so he keeps on looking at a new niche. I mean, how do you go from calling out Anthony Joshua to then dropping down to a 135 pounder? Like, it's just it'll stop at nothing. The only thing I will say, it's a bit controversial, but we like a bit of controversy, don't we? Is that if I'm Tank Davis and before my last fight I was talking about depression and knocking it on the head and thinking about I don't want to do it anymore, and then when he got in there with Lamont Roach, arguably in my opinion lost the fight, is he just looking and going, what, you want to pay me what? You want to pay me what to get myself involved in a WWE event? Sure. And because if he don't do it, AJ was going to do it. So Davis is, yeah, give me that money then. I'll take that, because he's already got one eye on the door anyway. So whenever there's money, Mr. Neutral, whenever there's money floating about and he keeps on coming up with a new concept, someone's going to buy into it, and he ain't going to go anywhere. I mean, we're talking about Jake Paul, the fighter, right now. Jake Paul, the promoter, I'm having him all day long, every day. I think it's great what he's doing. Jake Paul, the fighter, is going to do this. He's going to go for a little dance with Gervonta Davis. And then after that, he's going to call Joshua out. And it's just like, where does it end? Well, I can't see the ending for him. I did think, last point I'll say, I did think that Joshua would put an end to it. Not an end to it, but Joshua ain't going to get paid $20 million to go 10 rounds with him. He'd have put his right hand straight down his throat at some point, and it would have been nice to see. Having said that, whatever the money's there, these boys are going to take it.
Thank you, Boxing Man. Bobby Sampson and Chance of Canada.
It takes your hands to clap, right? I mean, Jake Paul is what Jake Paul is. We should already know that. I mean, just from the beginning, the way his whole career started, and respect to him. I mean, at the end of the day, he is trying. I mean, you got to give him that credit, but fight someone viable, right? Like, I get it. Boxers will take the easier fights as they progress in their career and stuff, but not the way Jake Paul is with this absurd money. It doesn't make any sense at all, and Tank should know better. Like, you're facilitating it, right? You're making this happen. I mean, Tank has his own problems with all the domestic issues and all those kind of things. I'm not a fan of any of that stuff either. So of course you're going to take the easy fight. Of course you're not going to fight Lamont Roach because you can lose. You know what I mean? There's kinks in this guy's armor. He was supposed to be the face of boxing. Where is he now? Right? So yeah, cash grab. Who wouldn't take it? I get it. I don't agree with it, right? But it is what it is, and it's the world we live in. And I think a lot of it has to do with just the way social media, the internet, and all these other little components have come into play. We see it across other sports as well, in terms of, like, look at cricket. I mean, for example, I come from a time where watching a test match was a great thing, and the shortest match was a one day match, right? Like 50 overs. Now you got 20 overs. Now you got 100 balls. So it's just that they're making everything smaller and quicker and faster just to appease a generation that grew up on clips. Can I say that? Like, no one has the capacity of, I would say, I don't know, man, and I don't want to pigeonhole the whole generation, but the last two generations, in my opinion, don't have a memory span past 5 minutes. Think of it, no, like, you look about it, everyone knows all the clips and everything, but who sits and watches a film? No one has. They don't have the capacity.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you. Brunson Boxing from the United States. This is your back garden we're talking about here, big man. And we'll get the big boss after you.
So in my opinion, Neutral, at first I was hesitant to support this match, and I'm really not going to support it in the terms of a boxing fan.
Yeah.
But what I do realize is what this is to change the star power for Tank Davis. For those, and most of us here, I can see, are of age where we can remember when Floyd had transitioned, and I like to bring this up, when Floyd had transitioned into WWE during his time off from the sport. We all remember him wrestling the Big Show. That changed his whole persona. It moved from Pretty Boy Floyd to Money Mayweather. And that forever changed the dynamic of how and who, pertaining to fan bases, watched Floyd. He went from primarily a boxing fan base to a global fan base. And it opened up to where he was able to pull eyes from just a vast majority of different areas that he had not gotten before. And I think that's what they're hoping that this does for Tank, to where when he does come back to the boxing game, maybe he is that guy that can average again, or be the first person to average, a $1 million pay-per-view sale every single fight.
Yeah. Cheers, my man. Cheers. We just lost Brett there. We're back. Just to go quickly to the chat, obviously Rick Collin and my man Jams there in the background. So big up boss. We got NYWA, yes lads. And Williams Wrestling has got a question. What do Floyd and Tank have in common? We'll get to that in a sec, because I want to hear what Big Boss has got to say, what we've said so far.
Salute to everyone in here. Glad to be on here, Mr. Neutral. Well, I mean, at first I'd be pissed off at Jake Paul and the way he's been running his own version of boxing. But when you think about it, when you look at, he almost got Canelo before he signed for Turkey, and now he got Tank, as a big alternative. I mean, I don't know, man. You could see how much influence he's now starting to get, and that's a bit scary when you think about it. So, yeah, I will give credit to him in the women's boxing. He's doing great work with MVP, man. So I give him huge credit with that, because that was needed. For especially with Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor, that was a huge success in the trilogy. So
yeah, at one point he's springboarding off that success with them, with the women's, and sort of legitimizing himself in the professional ranks. And obviously the WBA have not helped that Adolfo by giving him this cruiserweight ranking, and that's another thing I want to come to. He was given a ranking by the WBA cruiserweight. He wanted Badly Jack. He wanted Jai Opataya and Zotto, and now nothing. No Mkhitaryan. I remember that when he was shouting out. So, I don't know where he is from 1 minute to the next. Ra.
That's the only thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, finish what you were saying there.
I'll make my quick point. It's interesting, isn't it? That's the only thing that I'll criticize him for. He just keeps mentioning names, and one after another. He's mentioned Zurdo. He mentioned Opataya. He mentioned AJ, Tank, Canelo. All these names, but is he really serious about it? I mean, you're opening your mouth. Where's the action, man? Action speaks louder than words. You finally got with Tank, but honestly, though, a heavyweight versus a lightweight, that's just crazy, man.
Yeah.
Like, do you really need to take on a lightweight? Like,
well, it's kind of like UFC all over again. UFC 1, right?
Exactly. And interesting, Jake Paul, if he was actually serious, he would have actually taken on a legit contender in the cruiserweight division. There's plenty of names. You could, and remember, and you'd be the A side, because you already made a name, for yourself outside and now inside of boxing. So, I mean, Jake is technically in a win-win situation, but he just tends to take on the bigger names instead. But if it was a bigger name on his own weight class, then against someone like Opataya or Zurdo, then yeah, that'd be great. But no, man, you have to take on a smaller guy. That don't make sense. Like I said, I don't want to contradict myself. Because when I said I really can't be mad, because again, this is how much power he has now. He can sway you easily. That's the thing. He's very persuasive now, and again, that's the scary part about it.
That is Ra. Thank you, Adolfo. By the way, that was a wonderful analysis. No Ra, we have certain people that we have gripes against, but Have you got anything negative to say about what Jake Paul's doing right now?
No, I've got nothing but positive things to say about him. Can't say I'm interested in his fight career or any of his fights. Won't be watching them, but the man is the best promoter in the world at the moment. I'll tell you why. Because his events, they generate income. He doesn't need state subsidies from an oil state. Yeah. And he isn't the problem. He isn't the problem. Look, this has always been about, prize fighting. It's always been about money. I mean, anyone who's pretending it isn't, you got short memories. This game has always been about money. There's always been egotistical promoters that block fights rather than lose control of some of the championship belts. And not wanting their fighter to get beaten. There's always been fighters that have been carefully maneuvered into the world rankings and then stall, including some of the so-called actual professionals. I've been critical of people like Chris Eubank Jr., for example, who get to a top position and then stall rather than actually fight someone who's liable to batter him. Anyway, I ain't got a problem. I'll tell you what the biggest problem is. The problem is the industry. Yeah. The promoters don't know how to promote in the modern world. They don't know how to market in the modern world. The fighters don't want to market themselves. You know what I do. I do the media stuff. I don't know what it's like in America, but certainly I can speak for Britain. I go to these events. I speak to prospects. I speak to fighters on small hall shows. These kids don't want to talk. And I've seen worse. The worst thing is because, guys who are good at fighting, usually they're not good at talking. That's always been the way. I've seen their managers tell them, nah, it's all right. Don't do interviews with anyone except TalkSport. And I think, kid, just because you've been on TV once or twice, it don't mean you're famous. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the problem is the industry, the fighters, the managers, the promoters. They don't know how to move this sport in the modern era of social media. And so this guy, Jake Paul's come along, who does know how to move it, and he is moving it. So good luck to him. Like I said, I think he's the best promoter in the world because his events, like I said, got to emphasize this, he can generate income. So yeah, I don't know. And look, again, you talk about egos. None of the major powers, the traditional powers, the promoters, they're not willing to change, are they?
This is going to be the next question, and I want to bring Rico in. Rico Boxing, welcome, my man, good friend of ours, working for the Boxing Voice. Great stuff in Riyadh recently. Welcome, Rico. So, Rico, you've heard what everybody else has said. My first question to you, obviously, is, have you got anything negative to say? But taken to the same into account, that maybe are we out of touch now with promoting in this 2025? Are we guilty of trying to keep it the old guard the same way, or is Ra right that Jake Paul at 28 has now become probably the best promoter in the world because of his model?
Thank you very much, Padre, and big up to Red Boxing Quarter, man. This family settings over here, so whenever Padre asks me to come through, there's, I'll always do that shit. No, but I'll big up to the whole panel as well. Love Raw, everybody. But I have, in terms of being there and actually seeing what, Turkey, Crown Prince, and everybody's actually doing, in my experience, it's incredible. There was all nationalities, everybody there, including the local people in terms of the Saudi Arabian people. They, I actually spoke to the paramedics, for example, and I was talking them through the fight. Oh, this is a jab. This is fighting at range. Da, 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 da. Boxing is my new favorite sport. I didn't even know this. this is the thing, and it brings togetherness. I can only speak about my own experiences, man, and from what me being there for a whole week, I especially being embraced by the people. I actually did a live there with you, Padre. So what I'm saying to you lot, I've not changed anything in what I've been saying. I can only speak about my own experiences, and it was definitely incredible. I think the support from anybody in terms of a head of state or a high level figure within having access to funding on a state level is brilliant. It's especially if you're using it to market and grow the sport in a way and in which it hasn't been done ever. Since the days of the Rumble in the Jungle, and you had like 130 million people watching just because it was set up so simply so that everybody could watch it. And the way that, for example, you see the Zone with Queensberry, with Matchroom, with Golden Boy, with the rings for boxing, with everything like that. I can only commend the growth of what I'm seeing currently. So that's just my opinion, and I respect everybody's opinion here, like 1,000,000%.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate that. Right, let's go back and reverse the order here. We're going to come back to you, Raf, first. The title of the show is called "What's Wrong with Boxing?" In your opinion, what is the problem with boxing today?
Well, I think, as I said, like the promoters haven't moved with the time in a time of increased competitiveness for entertainment. Something like football probably has, but there's just such a plethora of entertainment available now. As you said, as Samson said, the short attention span as well. They've not been able to, or they've been unwilling to move with the times to market the sport properly, so that the growth is organic. So yes, I take on board what Rico's saying, that having Saudi money, it's been good for now, but it's not organic, which means it's not sustainable in the sense that any time they decide to pull out, well, we are not going to get those super big fights, a couple of these undisputed fights that we've seen, for example, recently, because the market simply wouldn't be there. Yeah, so something like Bivol Beterbiev, the market would never generate enough money to satisfy both of those men. Same with Fury and Usyk. Yeah. Now people say that the introduction of Saudi money and Jake Paul has skewed the market. I don't think that is the problem, because if you cast your mind back to before either of those two players were involved, what you got was simply the fights not happening. And that's why it was so rare to get an undisputed champion over the past 20 years. And it's only in recent years we've started to get a few. Many of the greats, the last great couple of greats, Pacquiao and Mayweather, for example, they never became undisputed. They won one belt, but they were marketed very well. I just think that's the bigger problem. The sport isn't being promoted properly to sort of organically develop the sport. And the promoters, they still do odd things, and I include the Saudis in that, where you get fights which would sort of sell well, say in the UK. We've seen a few of our domestic bangers go over there, and then they just fight in front of an empty arena. I just don't think they're streamlining the sport properly. And that goes all the way down to the grassroots level. Again, I'm talking about the UK. Our colleagues over on the other side, they probably know better about that side of the pond. But you need to have it. You need to have the tiers of the sport and the matches appropriate. So a great domestic fight shouldn't go to Saudi Arabia. Bivol versus Beterbiev should, for example, and Fury versus Usyk should. That sort of thing. But you know, why you're putting like Fisher v Allen over in Riyadh when it could have sold out either the Copper Box or what the fuck was it, Doncaster, where Dave Allen's from? I mean, I don't know. Things like that. So this, you know, again, that's what I see as the biggest problem: the lack of the ability to generate that mass appeal. But Jake Paul is doing it, so kudos to him. Not the way we want him to, but he's the only one doing it.
That's true. Thank you, mate. Big Boss, Ra was saying about the promoters and that. Now, Jake Paul has got a great relationship with the WBA, where they put on they made 5 title fights for that card. Has Turkey created an undercard war, in your opinion?
That's a very good question. You know, when you meant, you know, to answer that with another, I mean, yeah, promoters are just as responsible for trying to promote the sport, which haven't been done, which, you know, some have been doing recently. But then you have to look at the fighters themselves. You know, some of the fighters, they just don't want to fight with each other. And Turkey's doing, you know, despite how some people feel about Turkey, he's doing all he can to make all the fights happen all in the same card. And even if not, then I'll be on a different card. You know, so I do give him credit for at least he's trying. You know, sometimes he's maybe trying a bit too much, or things when he doesn't go his way, he'll complain about it. But you know, he's trying to get things done. Now with Jake Paul, well, again, I mean, I give credit to him for what he's doing, trying to go up against someone like Turkey. You know, they're both doing their best, absolute best to keep promoting, to put on the best fights they can put on. But as I said, you got to look at some of the fighters who just don't want the smoke. You know, and even if the money is there, I don't know how true it is with Teofimo, who keeps saying no to Turkey. If that's the case, then why? What are you doing in the sport then? I mean, if you want to take pennies going up against, you know, a tune-up, that's your choice. But you're just you know, digging yourself a bigger hole that you can't get out of. So that's there as an example. You know, it's to me it just the clusterfuck right now, and the state that we're in. You know, even with Turkey involved, even with Jake Paul involved, no matter how we feel about them, they're trying. I'll give them that. They're very trying, but still, it just goes back to how boxing is being promoted right now, and it's very dim from what it looks like, from what I see in the future.
Thanks, mate. Great saying. Clusterfuck. Let's come to you, Blunts. Hearing Adolfo say that, I feel that MVP, not MVP, well, Badarian, he's an instigator of much of this talk about Jake Paul. Now, for me, he's abusing the system, Blunts. He's leapfrogging the system, the rankings. If I can't make it a ranking fight, I'll go and take and make the best PPV fight, or what would be PPV, and I'll take it to Netflix, and you know. But what's really grinding your gears, Blunts, about the state of boxing today?
I think, in my opinion, what really is just getting to me is a lack of growing fighters naturally, the way it was done previously, years before. We had talked about this earlier on a different platform, but pertaining to, you know, fighters actually growing their brand nationally, by doing fights in multiple different states, specifically here in the United States. That's what was very commonplace, even for the likes of Roy Jones Jr., Floyd Mayweather, Oscar De La Hoya, so on and so forth. All of the stars in boxing wouldn't just be fighting in one specific place, like Las Vegas or New York, or, you know, or just singularly the UK. You know, we had fighters who would oftentimes travel in order to grow their brand. We don't see that often. And I feel like what it has become is just the quickest way to the biggest bag. That's what boxing has turned into, at least within the last 5-10 years, I feel like. And promoters are following that suit. They haven't learned any better from the recent droppings, specifically here when we're talking in the United States, pertaining to, we are in the day and age where no boxing program is on any normal cable network. First time ever in American boxing. That within itself should tell you, as a boxing fan, it's very bleak times, and it's looking a little disgusting pertaining to the growth of not just the sport, but the stars and the prospects and everyone from the lowest part of the roster up. It's a very bleak time, I feel like, when it comes to actually growing.
Yeah, we seem to be in this. I mean, if you take Jake Paul out of the equation, take Tank Davis out of the equation, we seem to be in a bit of a doldrums. Big shows are going from both sides of the pond to Riyadh. We're getting left with, you know, decent, I would say, cards domestically, but they're not the best. The best shows are going, the best fights are going abroad. And in this doldrum now, and one of the questions in the chat there says, what do you lot think of, you know, the BBC having boxing again? And I think it's terrible. We're actually going backwards to put boxing on terrestrial television in that sense. And there could be an issue with US boxing with that knock-on effect now. And, you know, and Jake Paul and MVP, as a promotional company, have done extremely well in the first. It's not even a year gone, and already, you know, probably launched into the fourth biggest promoter in the United States. So where would they be in 2 years' time? And maybe Ra is right. Maybe that, you know, that we've not given this young man enough credit for the way he makes money and way he generates income. What do you think, Paul?
I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes down to money, and more so nowadays than ever. Most of these athletes are going for the buck. You know, it's not. I mean, look at back in the day, Mike Tyson fought 15 times in 1 year. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, guys aren't fighting anymore unless that paycheck's there. And when we were all complaining about not getting unified fights about 5 years ago, all that's changed now. We're getting all the fights that we want to see. So in one hand, we're getting everything that we want, but we're not happy still. I think what we need to see here is just some of these fighters relax their minds, man, and work on your craft and get up in there. You know, like even to get an interview, like Ra was saying, it's almost impossible to get these guys on your show and whatnot, because they all either want money or they think they're too big for you know, a show. Unless it's, like you said, Sport or ESPN or something like that. And, you know, I've always said that the UK boxing is bigger than North American boxing. I don't know, you know, if Big Boss and Blunts can back me up on that. But, you know, we've had some big boxing matches here, but you guys seem to fill the stadiums and arenas. You know, like we got Canelo Crawford. Outside of that, there's not many guys who can fill stadiums here like that, right? So I think the problem is always going to be money, and it's always going to be promoters wanting the most money. And if they're smart, they learn, they figure this out and get along and make it happen. Because one day, you know, the money's going to run out. Saudi's going to get bored and move on to the next thing. Then what? Are we back to 1989 again?
You know, Samson, that's a very interesting point, because I actually made that statement a few months ago as well. Eventually, Turki Al Sheikh is going to be bored of boxing, and that money will dry up. Because you got to remember, we got the World Cup at Saudi Arabia in less than 9 years' time. Yeah. So when it comes to that point, will he still want to be in boxing at that point? And then of course, WWE is going to be in Riyadh again next year. So again, there's all these other sports that he has, and then eventually, I ask again, will he still be in boxing by that time those events hit?
And the other question is, for North American side of us here, we got TKO coming, right? We got that whole, right? We got that promotion. No, but it's gonna poke people's mind in that direction. If people like UFC, this is where people are going to start going over there. So, it's just like, I don't know what to make of it currently, right? I mean, to be fair, I'm just embracing what we get and enjoying it, to be completely honest, because I don't know if we're going to get opportunities like this again in a while, right? So drink it in, man, and just enjoy what we got, I guess. I mean, yes, always looking at the long term and whatnot, but at the same time, how can you complain with all the good stuff that we're getting? And on Tio, he keeps calling out Shakir now on X, so I don't know what the kid's playing at.
No. Rico, what's grinding your gears about boxing today?
Excellent points made by everybody on the panel. Big up to everybody. I just don't see this thing where, Turkey or, Riyadh season, or, if you really look at it, Riyadh season is everywhere. So if you watch wrestling, for example, I love wrestling. Raw, you see on the mats, there's Riyadh season there. Like that, Riyadh season is a separate entity in terms of sponsorship from the Ministry of Sport. So you say like he'll get bored. How can he get bored of something that he has his hand in everything? If that makes sense. So yeah. I think there's longevity. I think from speaking to the actual people themselves and everything like that, I think that there's definitely investment within the country, turning it into something extraordinary. And I say this because, as a proud British man, they want to build a city in the desert. You know how cool that shit is?
Yeah.
Like, and unlike Akon, I believe that they'll actually, I believe that they have because you speak about budget, like it's on record for them having a $31 billion budget, right? Like per year.
Well, sorry, what's that?
What I mean?
They got a pot of $1.2 billion, Rico.
Well, think about it this way: if you are a country that nobody actually knows exactly what you have in terms of the wealth pocket, and you're giving this type of investment in terms of like 31 billion a year to entertainment / sport / whatever through Riyadh season, the entity, sponsoring pretty much everything that's popular in terms of viewership. And the seeds have been sown for the next 10 years, 20 years. You're looking very short term, and I don't think it's like a short term thing. Like when I left, I think there's comedy festival with all of the best comics like ever, Dave Chappelle. Well, yeah, I don't know like the rest, but like this is, you don't just drop this type of bread just for the short term, just to, you know what I mean? Like it just doesn't. You don't have a fight in Times Square, right? Just for banter. And the thing is that you have the ring 1, 2, 3, like it's 4, 5, 6, like UFC. So now you have Zuffa Boxing coming in as well in terms of that investment. Like also, I thought it was like an amateur tournament. It's obviously not. Go check out the interviews. Pick up the Boxing Voice. They had the Battle in the Kingdom like tournament for what I say prospects or people that are like 5-0, 4-0. You know what I mean? And there's the
remodeling fight week, right?
You have the
It's shown you the thing. MVP have tried something similar this week where they had the prospect show. You had the sparring club on Box Raw.
But just to finish,
On you go.
no, just to finish, like in terms of the Jake Paul stuff, I absolutely, I'm a Jake Paul fan in terms of his promotion, his techniques, and like he has amassed millions of followers, like with his brother. You know what I mean? So this is
Yeah.
why,
Right.
like influencers have been able to, as much as like hardcore fans don't like it or whatever or what have you, Misfits, for example, right? They're literally able to just carry themselves, just like Ross said, and I absolutely agree with that. But in terms of growth for the sport, I think that, everything is like the amount of promotional companies that are on the zone, it's just all fitting into a nice little puzzle there. So, I'm all for it. That's just my opinion,
Yeah.
but I respect everybody else's opinion and love to everybody.
Right. What do you got to say to that?
Well, I think me and you discussed this on your Reuters special. My opinion, it's not so much a case of whether Turkey gets bored or not, because I don't think he's ultimately that big of a power in all of this. He's an employee of the Saudi state. He's not part of the royal family. Yeah,
No.
that makes him an employee. The people that really make the decisions are the Saudi princes. Yes, he's very close to the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. But like I said, Saudi Arabia, throughout its history, there has been constant power struggles within the royal family. In this case, Turkey was able to oust Prince Khalid because of his friendship, presumably with Mohammed bin Salman. But at some point, a rival faction will go to Mohammed bin Salman and say, look, you've spent this much of the national treasury and got nothing to show for it, because the arenas are always empty. The locals aren't interested. Westerners are not going to travel there in any significant numbers. People keep talking about traveling boxing fans. Ricky Hatton's fans were the only ones who ever did it. Yeah. Now, working class Brits are not going to go to an Arab Muslim country. Yeah. Don't want to get political, but they're both in Britain and America. There's very strong anti-Arab and anti-Muslim sentiment. Yeah, and Americans, they don't travel anyway. Yeah, they barely come to Europe, never mind the Middle East. So I just don't see it being a success in terms of what they're trying to do, and I think it will peter out eventually. Other factions within Saudi Arabia will say it ain't working. There's no point us hosting these big fights here because Westerners ain't coming here. Now, are there other markets? Well, again, this is what I mean about the strange decisions they make. They never brought Amir Khan or Manny Pacquiao over to the Gulf, and there are millions of Pakistani and Filipino workers in the Gulf. If you're going to get any foreign fighters, those are the ones to bring over. There aren't millions of Westerners working over there. There are thousands of Westerners, but they're all sort of highly educated, working in the oil industry.
Managers and
stuff. Not the sort of people that are generally are into boxing, which is a niche, becoming more and more of a niche sport as it is anyway. So that's why I don't see the Saudi project working long term. Like you're right, we enjoy it while it lasts. We're going to get some great fights as a result, but it will peter out, and that's where you need, that natural, organic development of the sport, which I said isn't happening for various reasons. And I actually agree with what Adolfo said. That actually a lot of this is on the fighters. There's this whole thing about, well, if you ain't got the guts to get in the ring, you shouldn't criticize them. But look, the truth is, people are getting softer. Yeah, back up until about the 80s, in America at least, you would want to do over your rivals. Yeah, Tommy Hearns, did he ever quibble about, I'm not going to be the B-side to Sugar Ray? Nah, he wanted to be undisputed welterweight champion. He said, fine, I'm the B-side, I'll do you in. You don't really get that anymore. So it's you got people
This
fighting.
is what this for me, right? You've just excellently put is a problem in boxing. The fighters have far more self-worth about them now these days. Now, I'm going to move on to Blunt's. A question that was going through my head as part of this process, and why, boxing, we got to be honest with ourselves, boxing on both sides of the pond is declining, although these certain big fights are making it look great in a minute. But don't forget, they're all going to be abroad, apart from the Tank and Paul fight, which you're only going to get. There's no other big US shows apart from that. Everything else is going abroad. Is the American and the British and American systems, are they in decline compared to the Abu Dhabis, the Bahrains, and the Saudi Arabias I've got envisioned for entertainment? I mean, are they aging out? Big Boss.
No, so it's in my opinion. It's in my opinion that right now what we're seeing is we're seeing all of the big fights that would usually be done in the United States pertaining to Las Vegas, LA, New York, or pertaining to the UK and London. It's all being taken over to Saudi Arabia. So it's going to be difficult to grow brands here in the United States or elsewhere when all of the big fights are being taken to one single country. So how do you grow a sport when that continuously happens? If you look at the schedule right now, as of right now, the only major event left this year is November 22nd. And that includes not just, here in America pertaining to PBC, but Top Rank, Golden Boy, Queensberry. Every major promotion does not have one fucking event left for the year to disservice.
There you go. Point proven. Bobby.
I think everyone's right in their own way. Everyone here is right. And when I look at North America, I say North American because I'm Canadian, yeah. And we don't get big fights in Canada per se, generally speaking. Everything we would get is regional. I would have loved to have seen Better Beeve and Bivol 3 here. I mean, considering he trains out of Montreal. I don't even care if it's back east. It's just, but yeah, it's declining. But I think also, for me, Vegas would be the closest place to go. And even going to Vegas itself, forget boxing, just Vegas itself is dying. It's declining. People aren't going to Vegas anymore. And I think a lot of this stems from, I think it all stems from COVID in a lot of ways. It's like they lost so much money. Everyone lost so much money. They're trying to recoup everything in tourism, and they've jacked the prices. They made it almost impossible to go down there and actually enjoy something. Yeah, Mabili could have, headlined Canada. I mean, these are the things that we're not getting. And I get it though. I mean, you go where the money is, right? And a fighter's lifespan is short. So I get it. You want to make as much as you possibly can before you have to retire. It totally makes sense to me. But I think it's a decline I think it's just a decline in everything, man. And I think a big part of it is social media and the way these guys market themselves. Like, we talk about the 80s and a part of the 90s. These guys really, really had to work hard to market themselves, with the limited resources that they had. Whereas now anyone can market themselves with the internet, right? I mean, just get online and say something absolutely absurd, go viral, and people start following you. That's all it takes, right?
That's just one of my things at the minute as well.
Right. So with
will have a social media career before their actual career.
Well, that's it. You look right now, example, Teofimo and Shakir going back and forth. Just do something already. Set it up. Like all the time spent with all these guys doing their IG lives and this and that, like, I mean, shouldn't you be training, or instead of talking trash, make the fight happen, right? So again, I think everyone needs to smarten up in the industry, from the promoter to the fighter to everyone involved. I mean, at the end of the day, we're the ones losing out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to go to all these fights. The real fans are the ones that are losing out. And in wrestling as well, the fans are losing out. Like the people who actually enjoy it on a day-to-day basis, we're all losing out. These events are now for corporate people. None of us could afford it to go and actually enjoy ourselves. Rico, how expensive was it for you in Saudi, if you don't mind? Like, not numbers, but were you surprised? Was it reasonable? What was it like?
Mate, my shit was mad. So I'm different though. So I actually, I had a sponsorship. My flights and my hotel was sponsored by a future world champion. You know, like normally in, so it just depends. Like it's just like a normal holiday package, bro. Like I was born in Zimbabwe, for example, in Africa. So if I did a holiday package there, it would probably be double the price. But I did it so close to when I left. So, you know, the pricing actually matched like the time until I actually had to go. But if you book early, if you know when the fight is happening, so it's like 3 months away, it's like I'll tell you what, it's actually cheaper than traveling to, you know, a country within the United Kingdom, which is crazy work.
No, but just being on the ground itself, was it reasonable? Was it like, for example, if I go to the
you mean
arena,
what?
you know, a beer will cost like
yeah,
7
bro, are you
pounds, 10
crazy?
pounds.
Listen, like 50 real is like a tenner, 10
Okay.
pounds, bro. So you could get, in terms of like food, the food is very cheap. The only thing is like cabs. All right. So you have to, like, if you have transport there, oh my God, you complete the game. Or you take the metro. So I understand the metro system because I worked in London for a very long time. And the people there, like I said, my own experiences, friendly. They, you know, like they'll, you know, my tattoos, this and that. Like when I came back, you know, I think people like were actually asking like what they actually accepted, like sleeveless shirts and shit. I was like, bro, they were selling them over there. Like I don't know, like, do you know what I mean? Like it's like, don't listen to as being a part of the media, right? For the last 6 years, bro. Don't like, if it's opinion based off of a couple of people that you listen to, and if you're able to go there, just go to the place, right? And then you can actually get a real, because those people, and like I'm somebody who is quite friendly. So in terms of embracing the culture, it was just hot when I went there. It's fucking hot. Like it was ridiculously hot. That shit was just crazy. I almost died on the first day. That's another story for my biopic. But you know, I can't say anything bad about the place because they treated me well.
Right,
you know?
right. So
there were people that literally like give you water and stuff. And in terms of like, so American dollars to the local money, you'll be able to, like, if you go there with $1,000, like I was sponsored the whole time I was there. So like I said, my case is very, very different from everybody else. But if you go there on a holiday,
yeah,
and you convert like 100 US to real, it's, you know, you'll end up having a really, really great time. So yeah, man.
yeah. And
Just go
so,
to
you
the
know,
spot.
in North America, they're not making it that way for anyone, right? You know, so I feel like
Samson.
commissions need to kind of, you know, step up here as well.
So, Samson, I've been to
Yep.
Kingdom several times, and the short answer is it's a lot cheaper than going to the US. I haven't been back to the US for about 25 years, but from just that cursory look at costs, considerably cheaper going there for now. But it's worth remembering Dubai, what once was a bit of a budget destination, now it's very much a top end. So
Well,
for now,
That's what they want to create there, is that top end elite market money. They don't
Right.
want you there for just one day to go and watch boxing. They want you there for a week, and boxing is just part of that package. You know, we have discussed this before. Again, I want to ask you, Ra. Um,
Padre, can I just say one thing? I'm really, really sorry, and then I would like to say anything.
Go on, Rico.
My bad. In terms of like you,
Keep
so
it
if
short.
I'm a drinker, right? Sorry, Padre, no monologue. I'm a drinker, you know what I mean? I smoke this, or whatever like that. I can genuinely tell you that you don't need any of those things when you go there to that place. The culture is the drug. The people are, you know, the alcohol percentage.
Man's in
It's
love. Man's in love
no,
with
it's
Saudi
it's
Arabia.
one of those places where, you know, it's like it's you know, go see it for yourself. I have nothing
An
positive
eye
else to say.
opener. I can imagine it's an eye opener. So yeah, right. Getting back to you, is boxing losing its discipline?
What, because of these circus acts that are coming into the sport?
You've answered it for me. Thank you very much. You're on.
Yes, somewhat. It is. I mean, as I said, yeah, in the past, there's always been fighters that have been carefully managed, getting to world rankings that they didn't deserve, etc., etc. But this absolute clown show of a cruiserweight fighting a lightweight, I don't think we've ever seen any nonsense like that. So, yes, it is losing its discipline, unfortunately. It's early days. We'll, I guess time will tell to see just how far down this rabbit hole the sport goes. But yeah, based on what we've seen, it is losing its discipline. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, mate. Big Boss, are you there?
Yep, I'm right here, man.
Yeah. In question, boxing, is it losing its discipline across the board?
Yeah, I think it's lost its discipline a while ago, even with the big money by Turk coming in. But again, that's the one we wonder how long that's going to last. So you could say Turkey coming in only papered the cracks. So it's only a temporary fix. Now with TKO and Zuffa boxing, I don't know. I think that's just going to make things a bit. I think it's going to make things worse, considering that they want to adopt that UFC model because I'm sure they don't want the boxers being paid as much as they had been. Well, for a few certain fighters who have earned that huge checks. You know, they want to adopt that UFC model, and that's not going to be good. That's not going to end well, because then, you know, especially if they do repeal the Ali Act, then it's going to be more than a clusterfuck, man. It's going to be a black hole coming in and just destroying everything. So
That's
yeah.
what.
So again, discipline. The boxing. It's
So
discipline
over dramatic.
a long time ago. So.
All right, well, thank you for that, Big Boss. Bob, same to you, mate. Close the show first with your opinion.
Tell you what, man, I think boxing lost its discipline a long, long time ago, to be completely fair. I think we're just, again, we're just in a new generation of expectation. We're in a new generation of how things are done. And, you know, boxing is the sweet science, man. It goes back over 100 years, right? And it's unfortunate, but it's a sport I love. And, you know, we trudge through it. So, I don't know, man. We can have this conversation every day, but and I'm sure this conversation's happening everywhere, but the people in power aren't changing. So what can we do? What can we do?
What can we do? And we'll leave it on that on this debate show. What is wrong with boxing? But at the same time, what can we do? Guys, thank you all for coming on to this 60-minute special here in Red Corner Boxing. With me, Mr. Neutral, Bobby from Sampton Giants, Rico Boxing for the Boxing Boys, Big Boss at Adolfo. We had Bronson Boxing there before. We had Brett the Boxing Man and my good friend Ra. Welcome from Punch Out Boxing. Thank you very much for your valuable time. And we hope to have you and see you again on Red Corner Boxing should the need arise for a debate. Gentlemen, thank you. The audience, thank you. To the chat, everyone who come on and everyone who left a comment. This show is sponsored by Red Corner Box, by EasyStorage.com even. For all your local and nationwide needs, they handle your goods with care and boxing fight zones for all your apparel and merchandise. Check them out in the bio. My name is Mr. Neutral. Till next time. See you then.
Red Corner Boxing.